Welcome to The Agenda with Ari, where bold conversations and real solutions meet. Join Arienne Childrey as she dives into the issues that matter most. Ready to break barriers and build bridges? Let's get started.
All right, folks, I had a different plan for today's episode, but the circus of this week's lame duck session in Ohio completely changed the agenda. We're diving deep into what lame duck really means and why it matters so much right now. So a lame duck session happens after an election, but before the new officials take their seats, which in this case will be on January the 6th of 2025. In theory, it can involve legislators who have lost their re-election, but still have a few months to wield their power. In practice, it's often a prime time for controversial bills to pass, driven by those with little accountability left to the voters. Here in Ohio, however, our gerrymandered districts eliminate a lot of surprises. So lame duck shenanigans are more about leveraging unchecked power than last-ditch moves by ousted incumbents. We've seen this revolving door power play here too. A prime example of that is Matt Huffman, the current Senate president. He's term limited out of the Senate. So what did he do? He just ran for a House seat unopposed, while his ally conveniently ran for his old Senate seat. And yesterday, he voted as a senator. But come January, he'll slide right over to the House. Okay, so why does this matter? Well, it's because it's a perfect storm. The public is election weary. Media coverage thins out, and legislators are pushing through their most extreme agendas. A bill that isn't passed right now has to restart in the next session, going through all the hearing phases before it gets to a vote. So it ends up becoming like a clearance sale for political poison pills. This week, Ohio Republicans kicked things off with a bang. Senate Bill 104 was originally about the College Credit Plus program. It was bipartisan, and it was a good bill to help students earn college credits. That is, until the House inserted House Bill 183, a trans bathroom ban, as a Trojan horse to speed up passage for that bill. The maneuver exemplifies political cynicism at its worst. But I do need to give credit where it's due. Our Democratic senators, led by our minority leader, forcefully opposed this and demanded their names be removed from the bill. It wasn't just a fight that was procedural, it was personal, and it was principled. Let's break down what House Bill 183 actually does. It forces K through 12 and college students, both public and private, to use restrooms based on their sex assigned at birth. Even if a student presents an updated birth certificate, it has to be from near the time of birth. So it effectively bans trans students from using the bathroom, even if they went through the process of having their birth certificate updated. The bill's invasive, it's discriminatory, and it's dangerous. Senator Kent Smith laid out its many legal pitfalls: Ohio's single subject rule, the logistical nightmares. But beyond the legalese, it's another in a long line of cruel attacks on Ohio's trans youth.
Yeah, this bill requires, I would direct your attention to line 1546, that requires schools designate restrooms and other facilities for, quote, the exclusive use by students. So I guess that's kindergarten through postgraduate degree now at this point. Exclusive use by students excludes visitors and staff. Not every school has bathrooms that are exclusively used by students. It would be easier to designate bathrooms for exclusive use of students within school buildings, but perhaps not for sports arenas. So let's fast forward to when this bill becomes law and we try to go to a football game at the Horseshoe. Ohio Stadium, many students patronize that stadium, as does the general public, but this bill would require that there are restrooms designated exclusively for students. Do you have to show your ID before you use the restroom? If you don't have a student ID, can you not use that restroom? Again, this is in the legislation. So there's one problem. Second problem is it opens the stall door to legal problems, pun intended. Bostack versus Clayton County, 2020 Supreme Court decision, which held that sexual orientation and gender identity are included in Title VII discrimination protections. One Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote the opinion, quote, discrimination based on homosexuality or transgender status necessarily entails discrimination on the basis of sex. The first cannot happen without the second.
This isn't just political theater, it's life or death. Numerous studies, including from the Trevor Project, show that trans youth who are affirmed in their identity, they're allowed to be themselves, have significantly lower rates of suicide and better mental health outcomes. Conversely, discrimination and rejection lead to devastating consequences. Earlier this year, the General Assembly passed a gender-affirming care ban for minors, despite overwhelming opposition from parents, medical professionals, and advocates. What was their justification? Protecting children from sex change surgeries, which aren't even happening in Ohio. It was fear-mongering, plain and simple, and when Governor DeWine vetoed it, he doubled down with administrative rules that targeted trans adults. The General Assembly then overrode the veto, which leaves us both with this horrible HB 68 gender-affirming care ban, but also with these draconian restrictions that the governor's placed on us. This brings us to yesterday's events. Here's our Democratic leadership making it clear that these bills aren't about safety or fairness. They're about cruelty. The fact that Ohio Democrats stood their ground while some urged them to drop trans rights is a testament to their courage and dedication.
And then, of course, what they did is they added something very controversial. And despite the fact that we say things like gender issues, these are people's lives. And we are making them less safe by ostracizing them to be unable to live the life that they have grown into.
We could not wait 1 week, not one single week, before we had to start attacking children once again in this legislative body.
The difficulty I have is that I listened to all of the ads over the campaign season about grown men who were 6'2", who were in the locker room with little girls in the 5th and 3rd grade who were just tiny things. And shame on us for continuing to try to separate and exploit individuals who have already been exploited enough. The unfortunate part is that I plan to take my name off of this bill as a co-sponsor, and what I don't intend to do is if I sit here and listen to your opinion, then that's fine. But while I'm talking, if you're making noises and you're sighing and you're upset with what I say, then unfortunately, that's too bad. Because I have a right, just like you do, to voice my opinion.
This bill will create suspicion and paranoia and fear in public spaces that will affect both children and adults. And all the experts, doctors, advocates, and my colleagues and I have tried to inform all of you that these bills that bully children and take away life-saving care are bad from a pure science standpoint, a morality standpoint, and a fiscal standpoint, but none of that has even mattered. The truth has never mattered. Facts have never mattered with these bills. The legislature is so whipped up into fury that they can't stop attacking trans kids.
There's been a lot of misinformation and a lot of fear-mongering that's gone on in the past months leading up to our time here today about a specific group of very misunderstood, marginalized, maligned group of people who exist. Transgender people exist. They didn't ask to be who they are. They are who they are.
We're already ranked 34th in education, 21st in maternal mortality rates, last in black maternal mortality rates, and now we're going to rank in the top 3 for high risk for trans people. We should all be embarrassed by these facts. Once again, here we are attacking children. When will it be enough? Thank you, Mr. President.
And so while we're traveling down the path of trying to protect our children under the guise of this bill, our children are watching and listening to the demonizing, to the fear-mongering.
Lame duck often takes good legislation and makes it terrible. And regarding the College Credit Plus program, that's now what the Republican potty police have done to this legislation.
There is a history in this country of scaring people about other people with bathrooms. We don't have to go too far down the road to remember that we had segregated bathrooms. There were bathrooms for people of color and bathrooms for white people. We say a Pledge of Allegiance with liberty and justice for all. There is no exception to that pledge. But here, there is an exception. We are telling our children, there are people that are less than. They are not the same. They are not allowed to behave exactly like the rest of us. That is a terrible message.
This isn't a one-off. The GOP is pushing bills to ban pronouns on college forms, muzzle professors from discussing controversial topics, and potentially reintroduce the infamous drag ban. Their cruelty is relentless. And yes, on a personal note, my former opponent also introduced a bill targeting candidates' ballot eligibility, simply because she couldn't get me disqualified during my race.
With 24 yeas and 7 nays, the Senate does concur in House amendments to Senate Bill number 104. The question is, shall the title be agreed to? And the chair recognizes Senator Antonio.
And pursuant to Senate Rule number 47, I request the names Antonio, Craig, Demora, Hicks Hudson, Ingram, and Sykes be removed from the title.
Without objections, the names cited by Leader Antonio will be removed from the title.
So this brings us to what I think is the most important part of this podcast today, and that's to Ohio's trans people and their families. Make sure you're reaching out to advocacy groups in our state. They're fighting for your rights and they're preparing you for what may come next. And many are talking about leaving Ohio, and I understand that. I support whatever decision you make to keep yourself safe. But as for me, Ohio's my home, and I'm staying put. I'm here to fight for every trans kid, for every family that's been terrified and tortured through these laws. And to those pushing these laws, sleep well if you can, because trans people are watching and we won't be erased. Keep fighting, everyone. It's dark, but we need to shine more than ever. And most importantly, we can't give up. The fight's too important, democracy is too important, and civil rights are too important. So please keep up the fight, and I'll see you in the next podcast, and I'll probably see you out there at some event in, I'm sure, the near future. Thanks for joining me on the agenda.